and gentlemen, we are going to have a two-part episode of a case that was happening here in Orange County, California, with a judge that both my guest Brian Gurwitz and I know, and we used to work with when he was a former prosecutor, as were we. And so you're going to hear two parts of the episode. One was recorded actually back in October, and the first episode was recorded in October of 2024 when Mr. Ferguson, Jeff Ferguson, prior former judge, was awaiting trial for the alleged murder of his wife, Cheryl. And after we recorded that episode, Brian and I both together decided that in the interest of preserving the integrity of our justice system, we didn't want to publish that episode and potentially affect any of the jurors and their decision-making in case one of the potential jurors was a listener of the podcast, because we were talking some smack. And just out of an abundance of caution, and really because both of us, as former prosecutors and now criminal defense attorneys, we do believe in the system, and we do believe that everyone's entitled to a fair trial without influence from other sources. So now that the trial has happened, we're going to release episode 1 first, which is us talking some smack before the trial. And then we're going to find out today on this second episode that we're about to film, we're going to find out about what happened in this trial and how it turned out after our predictions in episode 1. So that's why there's two parts, and they sound like they're like far apart in time, and it's because they are. And we hope you enjoy the show, and I can't wait to film the one with Brian Gurwitz where we talk about what actually happened at that trial. So listen, tune in, and enjoy. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Defeating the Darkness, True Crime Stories with Downtown Heather Brown. So today I have a really special podcast for you. It's actually being put out before our regularly scheduled podcast. It's a special edition podcast just for all of you listeners. If you have been listening to the podcast, our first episode, my guest and dear friend Robin Sachs asked me if I was going to tackle tough issues and talk about things such as Judge Jeff Ferguson being charged with murder, and I indicated I would. And so today I figured now is the time to talk about it, since there's been something very exciting that's happened on that case in the news. In case you haven't heard about it, we're going to talk about it today with my very dear friend and our special guest, Mr. Brian Gurwitz. And for those of you that don't know Brian, I need to probably maybe warn you a little bit. I'm not responsible. It's a trigger warning. He can trigger quite a response in a lot of people. And Brian is a former prosecutor that I worked with, and as nutty as he is, which you will see, he is probably honestly one of the smartest people that I know on the planet. And I mean that wholeheartedly. Welcome to the show, Brian. As weird as you are, as weird and wacky as you are truly, it's brilliance that comes out of your mouth in some of the most awful ways sometimes, because you have no filter. But the reason I had Brian on the show.
I do have a filter. That's a misconception.
Is it?
There's a lot that doesn't get said. Okay,
that's even more frightening.
It is.
But I needed somebody who I could bring on the show who would be candid and really have the spirit of talking about what we want to actually say. Because oftentimes you see, crime shows. I've done some crime shows, The Real Murders of Orange County, and it's a very buttoned up version of the crime. Like, the crime scene consisted of, well, I don't talk like that. And I know you certainly don't talk like that. And I think that what people want to hear is authentic conversations, right? Like real, like what you would really say when you don't think the cameras are on or people are listening. So I know people are listening, but let's just pretend now we're in the living room, which we are. And we're just talking about this case. So for the listeners who don't know, for the people who don't live in Orange County, let's talk about you first before we get into the nitty gritty of Jeff Ferguson, the judge who's accused of murdering his wife, Cheryl, back in August of 2023. Before we talk about that, let's just give the viewers a little snippet of you and who you are. You were a prosecutor for how long?
I was a prosecutor for about 13 years. And
at the Orange County DA's office.
County DA's office.
You worked with me.
Working with one Heather Marvin, who then became one Heather Brown.
Yes.
Excuse me. And then I left the office in 2007, did some work in the private sector for a big civil firm and so forth. Then in 2009, I opened my own law practice, and I've been doing criminal defense ever since. So for about 15 years now.
15 years you've been doing criminal defense, and you're very successful as a criminal defense attorney. Agree?
Yes.
Yeah, you're killing it. I know, he's killing it. He is very successful, and the reason you're so successful, Brian, is because I do think that you can tackle pretty much any legal argument, legal analysis with ease, and you're very well read, and you're super hella smart.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome. And I'm not just saying that.
Oh, I know you wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't just say that. I'm not having no dumbass on my show. But you are also known for, as Jeff Ferguson is. Oh, wait, back up. I want to say one more thing about you.
Before you compare me to the murderer?
Yes, before I compare you to the murderer.
Perfect.
We do have a couple things in common. We'll talk about that. But you have a lovely wife.
I do, who's a friend of Heather Brown's.
Yeah, she is a friend of mine and a dear friend of mine, and we used to be much closer when she was in the DA's office.
Yep, she was in the DA's office till, I think, 2012. She left shortly after I went into private practice.
Right, once you started bringing home the big bucks and you weren't on a government salary. I love your wife, Renee. She's lovely and very smart herself.
She is indeed.
She is. How did you score her? Blackmail? Did you have something on her?
There's a lot of things I just filtered out. So, for example, that was just something where it happened.
Yeah.
We met in law school in McGeorge, and she saw me from across the room and
thought I have to have that guy?
Of course. Of course.
She's a little person like yourself, though, right?
She is.
Okay, well, now that we've covered that ground, one of the things I think you have in common.
Don't ask me for body mass index, because I'm not giving that up on this podcast.
I won't ask you that.
Thank
and
you.
Don't ask me mine.
Okay.
But I will ask you this. You worked with Jeff, correct?
We both did.
Yeah, you and I both worked with Jeff Ferguson. So for those of you who are, not from Orange County, because it's everybody who works in the legal community in Orange County is very well aware that Jeff Ferguson, a former prosecutor here in Orange County, who worked for the OCDA's office and now is a judge, a seated judge, and has been a judge for quite some time now.
Right.
Is accused of, has been arrested for, and is actually, I believe, currently in custody for murdering his wife, Cheryl, who I also knew from the DA Christmas parties.
Right.
And so
their son, Philip, was born just, I think, within days of when our son Garrett was born. So it was we had kind of a coincidence there.
You had that in common, that your children were.
Mm-hmm. And I've also appeared in front of him, as I'm sure you have, but maybe I'm assuming. I appeared in front of him a ton of times when he was a judge and I was a defense attorney.
Oh, really?
You never appeared in front of him?
I never appeared in front of him.
Lucky you. Actually, you were a DA, so it would have been good for you.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't in the tower at Central Court when he became a judge. He was at North Court,
right,
which is in Fullerton. And I didn't appear in front of him. I was in the homicide unit. So this case is of particular interest to me because he's charged with homicide.
Right.
But I never appeared in front of him. How was he as a judge?
I think it was terrible. Okay. I think it was absolutely horrendous. He was, I was talking about it with some other attorneys the other day, and the best word that I could come up with for him was just thoughtless. What I mean is, as a defense attorney or a prosecutor, whatever side you're on, you're not going to win everything, but you at least want to believe that the judge has heard your position and has made a real good faith effort to apply the law without fear or favor and just make the best possible ruling. And I could tell you there is a very, very widespread perception, at least among the defense bar, that he did not do it. I mean, that was certainly my own personal opinion, that he was extremely thoughtless. He'd make snap decisions based on emotion, based on...
I think that's the moral of this whole podcast.
Exactly.
Snap decisions based on emotions.
Snap decisions based on emotion without giving it the consideration you want. And these are important things that were going before him. And it was just time and time and time again, he would make impulsive decisions without being familiar with the law, without taking the time to listen to the parties, without looking at sometimes evidence that's submitted to him. I remember a case I had where I had a ton of mitigation. I had 50 pages of support letters and so on and so forth. I'm not going to talk about the case itself, but he asked for another pretrial to consider it, and it was so clear at the next pretrial that he just hadn't. And I could give example after example of situations where I've talked to folks who have had just the same experience, where they were just disgusted by his lack of thoughtfulness as a judge.
Interesting. I didn't know that about him because I didn't even care enough about him to ask, and I wasn't a defense attorney,
Right.
So I had no reason to go in front of him. And he didn't handle homicide cases, and then before that, I was in the sexual assault unit, and I usually did my cases in another courthouse. So I never had to appear in front of him. I did work with him, and not in the same unit with him, but I only knew of him casually in the office as like a funny guy.
Right.
He played a lot of practical jokes. He was always
Some of which I think he got time off for.
Yeah, he got in trouble.
Yeah.
He was kind of reckless.
He was extremely reckless, funny,
Yeah.
jovial, but impulsive, just bad judgment.
Bad judgment all around. Yeah,
Right.
and I think we've seen that time and time again. He's kind of a little bit.
And by the way, when it comes to bad judgment, I could level that accusation with great credibility, because I've been known to do quite a few stupid things in my career, but none that rose to the level of what Jeff would do on a daily basis.
So you're not planning on murdering Renee anytime soon?
Can't talk about that.
Okay. As your attorney, I'm going to advise you not to talk about that. Yeah, you better stick with Renee, Brian, because I'm not sure
We're stuck.
you're going to be able to pull anyone as wonderful as her going forward.
Nope.
So backing up to this pattern of behavior of poor judgment. I mean, let's be honest. He showed it throughout his career as a DA. And I mean on just saying things you shouldn't say, not having that the governor on, which...
You chose not to say filter because you didn't want to make the comparison again to me to
you?
Yeah, because you had just accused me of having no filter.
Yeah, you do have a little bit of filter. Because I've seen you in court and you dial it back, and I've always found you to be in court very respectful. But outside of court, you're down to talk some smack. I've seen you talk smack on many occasions, and you're not afraid to say what it is you're thinking. And a lot of times it's for the sake of humor.
Right.
And I'm the same way.
Right.
And I've gotten in trouble too. Hannibal Lecter, right? I've gotten in trouble for comments I've made.
And for the viewers, Heather made, when one of her crazy defendants escaped from the jail, she made the comment, which was funny and completely accurate, that like, oh my God, they let out Hannibal Lecter. And you ended up getting screwed in the office because of it, which was just such bullshit.
It was bullshit. They ultimately apologized to me when they realized the problem I had at the time was they never asked me about the context of which my comment was made. But that's another podcast. Let's get back to Jeff.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I do have a mouth on me, and it has gotten me in trouble on occasion. But so have you. So we're not judging for that. But I have yet to murder my husband. Not that I haven't thought about it, but no. And obviously he's innocent until proven guilty. So he was accused of, let's talk about the facts of the actual murder that he is being accused of. And one thing I wanted to point out to our viewers is I know a lot of people don't, certainly study the law of homicide. And I didn't know this, I'm embarrassed to say, but I'm going to break it down. I didn't know this when I was a sex crimes prosecutor, the law of murder. I never studied it. I didn't have any reason to. I was too busy learning about sex crimes, but I didn't realize when you charge a criminal defendant with murder, you just charge them. You don't charge them with a degree of murder.
Right.
You don't charge it. Like you can allege premeditation and deliberation, but, on an attempted murder, that kind of thing. But you just charge them with the Penal Code Section 187,
Count
which is
one murder, and then the jury decides, is it first degree murder? Is it second degree murder? What's the theory? Was it premeditated? Was it felony murder? Was it, depraved heart murder? They decide the theory.
right. Or is it a voluntary manslaughter?
Right.
So the facts that I know of this, and this is not from any personal knowledge, but it's no secret, it's been in the paper and it's written about. And I think even Jeff's attorneys have talked about this, that he was drinking, which, listen, you can just tell by looking at his picture that he's a booze hound, right? And I'm certainly not judging. I love a cocktail myself, but he was a hardcore drinker. And, I would see him at the Christmas parties and he was generally getting schnockered, as was his wife. She liked to kick back some cocktails too, right? So they were drinking. Mm-hmm. They would drink frequently. And so, I think it's fair to say he was a stone cold alcoholic. And they were out drinking and they were arguing. An argument ensued, and
at dinner with their son, I believe.
At dinner with their son, Philip.
And I'm getting this, just to be clear, I'm just getting it from public documents that we've all had the ability to access. The DA's statement of facts that they wrote out in support of their request for increased bail and bail conditions and stuff that came out at the preliminary hearing and so forth.
Yeah, there's a lot of details in the court documents that we're gleaning this information from. Neither one of us has personal knowledge.
And much of which does not appear to be disputed by him.
Yeah,
at least from what I've heard about so far.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that analysis too. So they're at dinner, they get in a fight, they get in an argument, and it's alleged that Jeff makes this gun motion, like he's going to shoot his wife, the little finger gun.
Right.
For those of you who can't see this podcast. He makes the little finger gun motion at dinner. And is it the son there at the dinner?
I believe so. I'm not certain, but I think so.
I think because how would we know it? She's dead. She can't tell us that she made the finger motion, and he probably didn't throw in that piece of evidence.
There may actually be a witness to that at the restaurant to the argument, but I'm not positive about that. I may have read that.
Okay. But we know he makes this finger gun gesture at dinner. They then return home, and they're sitting there in the living room or some common area downstairs at their house in Anaheim, and the son is present when this happens, and the fight continues or resumes.
Right. Apparently they watched an episode of Breaking Bad or something, then after that's over, all hell broke loose.
It usually does in Breaking Bad, right? So all hell breaks loose, and Cheryl, the victim, his wife, who's like 65 years old, he's 72, by the way, or 73. Cheryl's sitting there and they're arguing once again, and she references the finger gun gesture at the restaurant and says, why don't you use a real gun or something to that effect? Now, Jeff's a big gun nut, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big, literally and figuratively. I mean, he had how many guns in his house?
Like 47.
Right. I mean, it's crazy.
I think they recovered 47, and maybe there was a missing rifle. But when they arrested him for this murder, they took 47 guns out of his house. So he was an avid,
His family wouldn't have been safe if they only had 40.
All right, we're not going to argue the gun rights, because I think you and I disagree on that, Brian. But you know what? Let me just say one thing about the gun thing.
Oh boy.
No.
We're going to argue.
Seriously.
This is going to be a big fight.
It's not going to be a big fight.
Okay.
Just one comment I want to point out. The people that don't believe in owning guns or having guns at your home, I respect that. But when the shit goes down, what do? You call the people with the guns. You call the people with the guns to protect you. You call the cops because they have guns. Okay, that's all I want to say about it. It's my podcast, so you're not allowed to respond.
Except if the person with the gun is inside your house. And maybe if there'd been like a 49th gun and
I get it.
Cheryl, she could have killed him first, but
nobody needs 47 guns. But anyway, that's another argument. But will
you come out right now in favor of sensible gun regulation?
Sensible gun regulation, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I don't think anybody needs those crazy ones that are, shoot up the schools and stuff.
Will you endorse Kamala Harris?
Hell to the no. But I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to say that on
This
camera.
is your chance.
That's a thumbs down. Anyway, okay.
Thumbs up from this side. Because what's the alternative?
So,
Can we talk about January 6th?
no, we're not talking about any of that, Brian. We're talking about Jeff Ferguson and how he allegedly killed his wife. So, he then apparently has a gun on his ankle. While they're
Doesn't she make a comment to him about using a real gun or something of that nature?
She makes a comment to the effect of, why don't you, she mentions the air gun, the finger gun at dinner, and says, why don't you, use a real gun? And he pulls out his real gun from his ankle. Now, let's just talk about that. This is a guy who's clearly got a CCW, right? He's a judge, and there's a lot of people in law enforcement want to be the big bad guy with the gun, I get it. Some of us actually do need guns to protect ourselves if there's people hunting you, for example. I've had that experience. So, I do have a gun and I do have my CCW. Now, I don't usually roll around with it, and I certainly don't sit watching Breaking Bad with it strapped to my ankle.
With a 0.9 million blood alcohol level.
Exactly. That's my next point. So there are a lot of strict regulations, rules and regulations about having a concealed and carry. That CCW is a conceal and carry permit that you have to apply for through the sheriffs and get training on how to safely use a gun and store a gun and keep a gun and, where the gun is. And it's not designed to have on your ankle while you're watching Breaking Bad in your home. Okay. So right there shows poor judgment, but you are not allowed to be consuming alcohol and carrying your gun around, which is why I don't carry my gun around all the time, right? Because if I'm going to have a cocktail with my friends on the way home, I don't want to have a gun in my car. I don't want to have a gun in my purse, right? It's not safe. And they call them spirits for a reason, right? The alcohol, because your judgment is extremely impaired when you're drinking. So here he is.
Why does that have to do with calling it a spirit?
Because you're possessed by spirits.
Oh, really? Is that where it comes from? I think
so. I might have made that up, but it sounded good.
Okay.
But they do. They call liquor and spirits, right?
Maybe your producer could.
Have you ever drank tequila?
On ChatGPT and then post the answer to this if that's really where it came from. Yes.
Oh, that'd be good.
Yes.
My amazing producer, Pete Campbell.
Your amazing producer, Pete Campbell.
In case anybody needs a really good producer of a podcast, Pete Campbell's the guy. Hit me up, and I will give you his contact information. So, back to Jeff and his poor judgment.
In fact, he's drinking over there right now.
He has to drink after listening to you talk.
I'm kidding. That's
why I'm drinking.
Okay, continue.
So we were talking about Ferguson's poor judgment, how he's got a gun strapped to his ankle while he's watching Breaking Bad. Argument ensues, and he pulls out the gun and he shoots his wife.
Right.
Killing her in front of their son.
In front of her only child.
Her only child. He has one other son from a previous marriage or relationship, an older son. But this is their son together, correct?
Yeah, I don't know. I know he has at least one other child. I don't know the answer to how many, but yeah, this is the only child they had with them. They had together, Philip.
Yeah, that is so tragic because in that one stupid moment, essentially Philip lost both his parents. Wow, that my heart goes out to him and prayers lifted for him. I mean, seriously, and her entire family too. Because it's such a senseless act, right? But I have to tell you, when you heard it, I know there's shock went through the legal community here in Orange County. Would you agree? Like people were shocked, but not.
It's a big event, but I know it sounds strange to say it, almost like a contradiction, but it was shocking. But no, I was 100% not surprised that in a moment of stupidity, Jeff Ferguson shot and killed his wife. You could talk to my legal assistant who called me with the news, and that's what I mentioned.
I agree wholeheartedly. I felt the same way. I thought, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. And I thought, yeah, I can actually, if I think about it, because Fergie was, and everyone called him Fergie fondly.
Right.
He was a fun-loving guy, but he drank too much. He clearly has an alcohol problem and an anger management problem. I think that was he had a reputation for being a hothead, right? And a short fuse. And when you have booze and guns involved, nothing good comes of it.
Right.
And so, yeah, it is a tragedy all around. So let's just go back to this law of murder. And the bail on that is normally $1 million, right? And so they had bail set, but he somehow convinced the judge, his lawyers convinced the judge to allow him to post bail, right? And have an ankle monitoring bracelet.
As a bail condition, right.
Okay. And one of the conditions of bail was no alcohol.
No alcohol, avoid alcohol establishments. And most importantly, it's called a SCRAM, SCRAMX device. A SCRAM or SCRAMX device is, it's an acronym for like continuous alcohol monitoring. But it monitors, I don't know if I'm using the right technical term, but the metabolites essentially of alcohol coming through your skin, and has continuous contact with your ankle and creates an alert if you've been drinking.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, they put those on a lot of DUI defendants, right? They can say, hey, put the scram on me, and that way they can still go about going to work and whatnot. Right. So he's got an ankle monitoring. I heard that he had 2 on. Like at one point, it was like checking his location, his whereabouts too. There was one that...
I don't know about that, but they could... My understanding is a SCRAM device is just the continuous alcohol monitoring. The SCRAM X adds the GPS.
Oh,
I don't think you normally need to have 2 of them, but...
Got you.
I don't know.
Okay, so it has a GPS because he was also ordered not to leave the state, or...
Right.
Okay. So if he has any alcohol whatsoever, it's going to alert someone and he's going to get busted.
Right.
And that happened, right? In August.
Right.
2 alerts, and it actually gives information. I read that he was his blood alcohol level was a 0.14.
Right. That's what it was. That was the corresponding level according to the manufacturer.
Yeah, that the corresponding level of alcohol they detected was a 0.14, and he gave a bullshit argument that it was some hand sanitizer that he put on his ankle. So he testifies actually that the device was causing his ankle irritation, which it does. I mean, I've had clients who have sent me nasty pictures, but causing irritation. And so he decided to engage in self-help and make it feel better with hand sanitizer and hand lotion. Bullshit. That sounds like a crock of shit. And the fact that he thinks that
By the way, that was Judge Ferguson's attitude, this lack of thoughtfulness right here.
Oh. Hey, but I'm not sitting on the bench. I'm in my backyard talking smack about people who are. But
more importantly, the judge said it was bullshit.
Yeah.
Who heard it?
Exactly. So, and I want to just give some a shout out and some hats off to that judge for calling a spade, right? It was, what's her name?
Eleanor Hunter.
Thank you. Eleanor Hunter. Eleanor Hunter from LA County. God bless you, baby, for calling bullshit when you saw it, because a lot of judges would be, because it's a judge, right?
Right.
But she sounds like she's a pretty sharp gal. And I believe that her comments were, I do not like being lied to.
Actually, I would actually disagree with that. I don't think a lot of judges would have necessarily let him off the hook after that, because I think the overwhelming number of judges in a situation like that are going to be taking, contrary action to make sure they're not perceived as giving him an extra break because he's also a judge. So that's kind of my thought on it.
Do you think she went to the farther extreme? Like, let's say it's Joe Blow,
No, I don't.
And he gets busted for murder and he's on the ankle and his alcohol level comes back. Is she going to yank him into custody and set it at $2 million bail is the bail, right?
On a murder case, yeah. Now, she did say, she made a statement when there were 2 court dates for this hearing on whether he should be taken into custody. And she said at the first hearing something to the effect of, look, Mr. Ferguson, if you had only come in here and be honest with me, admit you had been human, admit that you had made a mistake, I would have let you. I would have let you
it slide.
Go. Yeah, I would have let it slide. I don't buy that. I don't, and that's not a comment on her. I just can't imagine that. I think maybe her attitude might have been different about The court really, I mean, you can imagine how it would go down. The court really appreciates your candor. Unfortunately, Mr. Ferguson, this is a murder case. I can't let this go. And that's what would happen. She's not going to say, okay, have a good day, don't drink again.
Well, listen, I have to, in Jeff's defense, okay, not for the murder, alleged murder, but he's a stone cold alcoholic. I think that's unreasonable to say, okay, you can, one of the conditions is 0 alcohol and him not go into some type of treatment program to detox from his alcohol addiction, right? That's just, I don't know how a stone cold alcoholic goes from, 20 plus years of drinking. And, he would have cocktails at lunch and whatnot and to just 0 alcohol. And so he even said he was out at a lunch, I think. I think he mentioned he was out at a lunch with some other judges. I think that's what he testified to.
He did, yeah. No indication that they were drinking there.
No.
Those judges he was with are honorable guys, and there's no indication that I've read that he was drinking there.
His judge buddies in a spot, like to go out to lunch with the guy who's accused of murder. When they're not dumb. Like, okay, so I want to back up for a second because one thing we didn't talk about was he also texted his court staff after he shoots his wife. And I believe, I wrote it down so I didn't misspeak. I just lost it. I just shot my wife. I won't be in tomorrow. I'll be in custody. I'm so sorry.
Right. Now, the key word that you said in there was, I just lost it. So viewers at home, ask yourself, if it was an accidental shooting, if it was truly an accidental shooting under those circumstances, would that be your first word choice? I just lost it. I just lost it indicates that he was angry and lost it. Lost his cool.
Lost his cool.
He did something stupid, as opposed to, I was, oiling my revolver and it accidentally went off. Like, come on.
Yeah, I just accidentally shot my wife.
Now, I also heard that the bailiff who received it thought that text message was a joke and made some comment about, okay, great, I'll be by with a shovel or something to that effect.
Oh my God. Yeah. I hadn't heard that. That's wild. Yeah. I believe it. But so I think the overarching theme of his actions too, and I want to talk about the legal ramifications of what we just spoke about. But I think the overarching theme is, he's put a lot of people in compromising positions, from his court staff, because I know his court staff and they are lovely, lovely people and they're very loyal. And so that's got to be tricky when, this judge that you've worked for who's been good to you and you know him and you think he's great. And then all of a sudden now you're going to be a witness in a murder case against him.
Right.
The prosecution is going to want to call them and get in those text messages. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's super shitty that he put them in that position. I think it's super shitty that he put that judge in LA County in that position because how many times a day, like how many criminals does a judge see every day? Like sometimes hundreds. And there's a bunch of people on that scram device. And if she says, okay, I believe your, bullshit hand sanitizer story, then she's got to do that for everybody. And I guarantee if we did a forensic search of his computer, you'd find like what can affect the scram device, right? And give a positive reading. And the first number, number 1 is hand sanitizer.
Yeah, well, and by the way, there was testimony from the manufacturer at the hearing that the hand sanitizer would not have triggered that result, let alone the hand cream.
Especially not a 1-4.
Right. It's a different situation when they just said it would not have triggered this notification. It would not have registered as alcohol use.
Okay.
First degree murder would be intent to kill, and that's punishable by 25 to life. It's all academic because he's old and extremely overweight, and
he'll get elderly parole anyway.
There's There's gun enhancements and so forth. So he's a goner if he has a prison length of any length of time. But anyway, going back, first degree murder requires intent to kill. That's punishable by 25 to life.
Yes.
Now there's another 25 to life you get for the firearm enhancement, but the first degree murder, intent to kill, 25 to life. If a jury concluded that it was premeditated, it would be life without parole, but you've tried a lot more homicide cases than I've tried, and I would I'm sure you'd agree that no jury in a million years is going to be saying that this was a truly premeditated killing.
I don't believe it was a premeditated killing, and I don't think the DA can prove that.
Yeah, and
based on the facts.
I don't believe that they'll be making. I'd be surprised if they made that argument from what we see.
I mean, unless there's evidence. Now,
Right,
let's just say, unless there's evidence that we are not aware of, where like, you know, her sister says he was threatening to kill her all the time, and it was something that was bubbling, and you know. But on this particular, I can't imagine he would have done it in front of his son. So no first degree murder.
If the jury thinks that if in a moment he didn't premeditate, he didn't deliberate, but just in a moment he got pissed off and said, "I'm going to kill her," bang. That's a first degree murder, punishable by 25 to life, not the life without parole that it would be if it were premeditated. But to get that, the jury has to prove that he had the specific intent to kill when he pulled the trigger.
Let's just say he intended to kill her,
right?
But he didn't give it the proper thought.
Right.
Now what is it? This is a law school test.
Well, what do you mean? He had the specific intent to kill, but did not.
It was a very quick snap decision.
That's first degree murder. That'd just be first degree murder. No premeditation, no deliberation, but it's a first degree murder punishable by 25 to life.
Now, what
Plus the gun enhancement.
Yeah, but the jury on the first is given a jury instruction about how a cold, calculated decision to kill can be made very quickly. It's not necessarily the amount of time that goes by; it's the extent of the reflection.
They're told, what is it that you don't measure the existence of premeditation, deliberation in time. It's whether you weighed the consequences and so forth. So nobody's going to say it was premeditated.
Yeah.
I doubt the DA is going to even make that argument.
Just if he intended to kill her.
Just he intended to kill her.
I'll show you my real gun, and pulls it out, right?
Yeah. Oops. Yeah.
So he pulls out the real gun and then accidentally has his finger on the trigger and shoots her?
Right. So when this case is tried and they try and show, they being the defense tries to show it was an accident. So there was no intent to kill. The gun just went off. If they persuade the jury that there's reasonable doubt on that issue, then he would be entitled to a verdict of not guilty of first degree murder. The interesting thing, though, is whether the jury would then convict him, even if it's an accident, as a second degree murder theory. And should we talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's what I want. That's what I was trying to get you to.
Yeah.
Yes, talk about.
So if the jury says, some of us thought it might, it was probably intentional, others didn't. Ultimately, we decided that there's a reasonable doubt, and we concluded that it was an accident, or at least that there's a reasonable doubt that it was anything more than an accident. Then they'd be told to decide, okay, is that accident a second degree murder? And the second degree murder, the jury would find that it would be told to convict him of a second degree murder if the prosecution proved beyond a reasonable doubt that he acted with conscious disregard for human life. So that's sometimes called depraved heart or malignant heart, black heart. In law school, we've heard these terms. But it's basically when somebody does something and, they didn't intend to kill, but it was so fucked up what they did that they should be convicted of murder. They should be convicted of a step down, lesser degree murder, second degree murder. That's one way to get to second degree murder. So,
that's like if you go into a crowded building and you shoot a loaded gun and it hits someone, you're like, I didn't intend to kill anybody.
Exactly.
Right? You did something that was so inherently dangerous to human life, and you knew it was inherently dangerous to human life.
And you did it anyway.
You
said, you know what? I know that what I'm doing has a high probability of death. I know that based on my experience, my training, my life experience. And I decided to do it anyway. And that's consequences be damned. That is a second degree murder.
And that's also what we call, can you think of the other? This is a little test how we're able to charge people with a second degree murder for something that has conscious disregard for human life.
The Watson context. Yeah.
Watson.
So kind of one of the classic ways to get second degree murder in California is something called a Watson murder, named after the case that decided it, People versus Watson. And Watson murders are situations where somebody is convicted of murder for driving under the influence of alcohol and getting into a collision and killing somebody under circumstances where everybody agrees there was no intent to kill. The DAs will sometimes say, you know what, this wasn't just a manslaughter. We're going to charge a second-degree murder. And the way they do that is by saying this person had enough information about the dangerousness of it that we could infer that they had, when they did this act, they said, you know what, I'm acting with conscious disregard for human life because I know it's so dangerous and I'm saying I'm going to do it anyway.
Implied malice.
Implied malice.
Right. Is the legal term.
Is the implied.
And so they usually do that with the Watson murder if you have a second time, if it's your second time DUI.
Thank you for saying, yeah, that's the most important thing that I left out. That typically that the DA makes that decision, not always, but only to charge a murder only when the person has a prior conviction, because they could say, hey, they were arrested for it. They took all these classes. They were told time and time again how dangerous driving under the influence was. They were warned by the judge at the time of their sentencing. There's this, what's called a Watson advisement, where the judge says, driving under, they tell the defendant, driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs is inherently dangerous, blah, 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 blah. If you continue to do it and someone is killed, you can be charged with murder. Do you understand? The defendant has to say yes. So they use that in murder trials pretty effectively to tell the jury, look, he was told this by a judge 4 years before, and he said, you know what, I'm going to do it anyway. And that's the typical situation. So what's interesting to me is, I don't know if the DA is going to do this, but there would be a strong legal argument that the DA could do it to introduce everything Jeff had heard, not just through his training on guns, but through his work as a prosecutor, working on cases where people were killed, as a judge, sentencing people who killed or injured people with firearms, and basically said, this isn't just some guy. This is a guy who's a gun expert in so many ways. He has 47 guns. He'd been through these trainings. He'd, I think he was a police. Wasn't he a cop before he was a DA too?
I think he
had all this experience on firearms.
His CCW and all those classes and training.
He knew the danger of getting drunk and having a gun. He knew the danger of getting drunk, having a gun, and then getting in a fight with your wife and not putting it, not leaving
securing
the
the firearm in a safe.
Exactly. He knew the risk of a drunk person pulling out a gun in a fight with his wife and pointing it at her. I mean, there's just so many steps of what he did that the DA would have at least a fighting chance of saying, ladies and gentlemen, even if you conclude that he did not have the intent to kill and that hasn't been proven beyond a reasonable doubt, this is still a murder.
It's still a second-degree murder.
It's still a second-degree murder.
Yeah, I think this is a second-degree murder coming and going. I think the DA, Seton Hunt, who's a great lawyer, a little dry and stoic, he's not funny and jokey like you or Jeff Ferguson, but he,
you were going to say you or I.
No.
You compare me to him again. Thank you.
I compared you to the alleged murderer again. I know we're joking about it a little bit. It is very serious because Cheryl, his wife, was a lovely lady and did not deserve to be shot and killed. So, but we're defeating the darkness today with our humor, Brian, and talking about a serious topic. But at the same time, I want to just talk a little bit more about that Watson murder, because we had a case in the DA's office when I was in the homicide unit that one of the other prosecutors, I think it was Dan Feldman, who's a great prosecutor as well. Dan Feldman tried a young person who did not have a prior DUI, but they had participated in the MAD panel at school, where they bring on a whole accident scene. They create the scene at the high school to scare the young people from drinking and driving.
Right.
And so they bring in these smashed up cars, and then kids, the students, will be all bloodied and pretending like they're the dead people from the accident to, as a, some type of assembly for the school. And this young person, I don't know exactly how old he was, but he was probably 19, 20. He was very young. It was his first time DUI and he killed somebody, but he had been an actor in that MAD panel. Geez. And they used that as evidence that he knew that drinking and driving was inherently dangerous to human life. And the other thing that is important to point out, Brian, because I thought about this recently, and this is why like it's Uber, Lyft, or I'm calling my husband to come get me anytime I'm having drinks. But what you said about Jeff, because he's a judge and was a DA, and he presided over all these cases where people have gotten in trouble and someone's been killed with a gun, and that kind of is implied knowledge to him. I think that for that matter, any prosecutor or criminal defense attorney or judge who's working out there, who hears that admonition to clients all day long, and defense attorneys who advise their clients of that Watson admonition and judges who read it. First time DUI and you kill someone out of the gate, I think you could be charged with murder. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. I mean, it's the same theory. And here's why I say yes, and I say yes.
Like if I get busted and I drink and drive and kill somebody, it's like, dude, you were in the homicide unit. You handled vehicular manslaughters. You know the law. You've taken that advisement from, defendants that were pleading guilty. How could you argue that I didn't know it was inherently dangerous to you?
Right. And that's why I think it's all sort of bullshit, because I think 99.99% of the people in this country know that drinking and driving is extremely dangerous. And you're more likely to kill somebody if you are. I think most prosecutors want a second DUI, want a prior DUI, to make sure they could get the conviction upheld on appeal, and maybe for equity purposes, you don't charge everybody with murder. But in my opinion, that's not where the best defense is on a Watson murder, because we all know that it's dangerous. On the other hand, are you acting in conscious disregard for human life? Is that what you're actually thinking? I know this is dangerous, but I'm going to do it anyway. Especially when, in my opinion, this could sound crazy, but drinking and driving is not highly likely to result in death. It's just not. It's way more likely than driving sober. But, put a cop on the stand in any Watson murder and say, oh, tell us about your experience. How many DUI arrests have you participated in? 8,000 million billion. How many DUI fatalities have you been involved in? 3. So, I mean, I think it's unfortunate that many people have been convicted of Watson murder, because I think it's a hard distinction for a defense attorney to make. And I'm not saying don't punish these people who kill somebody while, on their second DUI, but be intellectually honest about it, because drunk driving is not highly likely to kill. It's just not.
That's a controversial comment that you're making, but I like it. I like the legal analysis of your brain is very analytical, and you're usually
devoid of emotion.
You are devoid of emotion, but I do love your brain, Brian. I do. And okay, so back to Jeff, because we went off on a little tangent,
yes,
but I've thought about that recently, and I just wanted to say it out loud. So thank you. So back to Jeff. So we can agree that there's a high likelihood he's getting convicted of a second-degree murder. What do you think about the fact that it's in Los Angeles?
I think it's a high likelihood that he's getting convicted of some form of murder.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, even for a second-degree murder, the prosecutor's got to establish what is the conduct that's, where it makes death a high probability. And so some of the facts are still going to be relevant, whether it's first or second. Like, were they fighting? Was he taking it out to scare her? I'm sure he's going to say, oh, I was taking it out to put it away, and it was just, unfortunate.
Right after she says, why don't you use a real one?
Unfortunate, or my son was traumatized and remembers the facts wrong, or, whatever. I mean, there's undoubtedly going to be a debate about what exactly happened.
Yeah, I agree. There'll be quite the debate. So let's talk a little bit about, okay, go ahead.
You'll note he did not text his office staff and say, oh my God, I fucked up. I shot my wife. Gun went off. I was putting gun, or something like that. He says, I lost it. I'm going to be in custody.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not what you say, it's what you don't say.
Right.
That is really the evidence.
And I lost it. What is the it it's referring to?
My temper.
Jeff. Exactly.
He lost his temper.
Right. What's he going to say? Oh, I meant I lost my balance. And the gun slipped.
Oh, that's a good one. Did you hear that, Ed? His attorney, Ed Wellborn, great lawyer. He's well represented, so that's good.
Right.
So he's got a great lawyer. There's a great prosecutor on the case. It'll be quite the the legal show, I would say, when this does go to trial, which it will, right? But I do think that there's a conversation we should have about the fact that that's LA County. So the Orange County judges had to recuse themselves.
Right.
And this case got moved to Los Angeles County. And do you think that he can get a fair trial? Is it going to be held in Los Angeles, or is it just a judge from Los Angeles who's going to come down to Orange County for the trial?
I don't know the answer to that. So the options are the trial happens in Los Angeles in that judge's courtroom where she comes down and does the trial. And then the second part of the equation is what jury pool do you use? Do you use the Los Angeles jury pool in Los Angeles, or do you use an Orange County jury pool if the trial's in Los Angeles?
Yeah,
So I don't know how that's going to go. I know at least his former attorney, John Barnett, was telling the press that they wanted an Orange County jury.
regardless of how you feel about the facts or what happened, he's entitled to the presumption of innocence, and he's entitled to, a defense, and he is entitled to a fair trial. To me, that's the most important thing, is that he at least gets a fair trial. And my concern, if I'm his attorney, Ed, is that the jurors in Los Angeles County, because they don't have any, attachment or favor for an Orange County judge, right? This is some I don't know, booze hound judge from North, court in Orange County who shot his wife, and, who's he think he is that he can get away with murder just because he's a judge? Mm-hmm. That would be my concern about an LA County jury. What do you think?
I don't know. I think the facts are going to
just determine
what happens in this case, as they do when you have two good lawyers on both sides. I think the facts get determined, and when you've got two good lawyers on both sides, I think jurors will acquit if there's a reasonable doubt, and they won't if there's not.
Do you think they do the right thing? The jurors do the right thing?
Overwhelmingly, yes. Yes.
I actually agree with you.
Yeah.
I think sometimes the DA or the defense gets not strong-armed, but what's the better word? Handcuffed by judges' rulings.
Sure.
I think the judges' rulings have a much more of an effect on the verdicts than necessarily the particular jurors.
Yeah.
Because I think for the most part, if you end up on a jury, after you've been questioned and whatnot, you try to do the right thing most of the time.
And I'll tell you, I have not researched the legal issue about whether a defendant has the right to a jury from their county,
their own community, or.
But I'll tell you, I'd be very, very surprised by it, because I know. The famous Charles Ng mass murder case, that was like Calaveras County. It was tried down in Orange County. I don't think they were busing in jurors from Calaveras County or anything like that. And
no, they were Orange County jurors.
Yeah, and there's no right. You talked about how Ferguson might be afraid that there'd be a jury that wasn't, favorably viewing him as an Orange County judge. But he's not entitled to that. You're not entitled to a jury that is biased in your favor. You're entitled to a jury that's not biased against you. But
yeah, well, and I don't necessarily think Orange County jurors are I'm gonna let that guy off the hook. Yeah. They're gonna be like, you're a judge in our county. We expect you to behave better, right? And not make such poor decisions, regardless, of if it was a quote accident or not. I do think that they're gonna expect more of that. So, I think the defense attorney's got a tough road ahead of him. And let's talk about after
well, how about before?
Okay, before. All right.
We go chronologically.
We talked about Jeff Ferguson not having the best filter.
Right.
And I think that's been very evident in some of his social media posts. Would you agree?
For sure. So, for example, not too many years ago, certainly before the homicide, he posted, and I think you put it up on the screen, but how this make believe Facebook test. How likely are you to snap and kill somebody? He got 9%, and then apparently joking and thinking that's low, he wrote as a comment, "I may need this for a court appearance someday."
So he posted one of those memes, right? Like a meme which has a meter on it that says, based on your name, is the...
Well, I don't know what it's based on, but congratulations, Jeff. You're only 9% likely.
He's only 9% likely. They should have said 99%.
One of those meters, exactly.
Right? Yeah. So the meter came up 9...
This disproved the scientific validity of that test.
Do you think at any moment that he's like sitting there and going, oh, shit, thinking of all the posts that he posted that in hindsight don't look good, right? Like, I'm 9% likely to snap. What else did he post? This was before the murder. He posted that.
There was all manner of pro Second Amendment stuff or gun nut stuff, depending on your political perspective on that issue.
Okay, we know he's a gun nut.
There's a lot of that, and his wife as well. He called his wife the first responder in his house. Well, interestingly, that's why gun violence doesn't usually come from outside the house, but that's another story.
So you should be happy for all the people who own guns. They could just kill each other, and then you get rid of all those right-winged, crazy gun nuts, right, Brian?
No. Then after, let's talk about after.
Oh yeah, so that's just an example of the Facebook post pre-killing,
right? Which it's funny and ironic or whatever, but it's not sign of absolute insanity. And I don't say that in the legal sense. He wasn't insane. But what the insane stuff comes after. He starts posting this, just a litany, a number of posts, memes and of the sort, where he's calling attention to himself. One, as somebody who's, going through deep sadness. One of the posts says, "Remember, not everyone's Christmas is merry," with a broken, I recall it had a broken,
heart emoji.
No, a broken Christmas ornament. Another just said, "Rain, rain, go away," with a pool of, rain and sadness or whatever. So he's going through this
pity party,
very public pity party, where he's trying to say, they joke around about the kid who murders his parents and wants sympathy for being an orphan. He's literally doing it. He blows his wife away in front of their kids, for Christ's sake, and is now seeking sympathy. I mean, it is so bizarre. And not only does he blow his wife away with the son watching, but he then bails out, spends all the resources, is doing everything he can to spend the resources that should be going to this kid. I mean, have some fucking shame.
Yeah, and maybe try to do whatever you can to make your son's life a little bit more whole. Yeah. Okay, so back to the memes, the things that he's posting. So when he posts these sad boo-hoo-hoo posts,
right,
is anybody commenting?
Oh, yeah. Janice Chifo, who is also
filterless.
She truly has no filter. She makes me look like the most cautious person in the world. Post something and you'll have it up. I thought I wrote it down, but it was basically like, "What the fuck, Jeff? You murdered your wife." It's
like, what are you doing, boo-hoo-hooing here? Yeah, good for you, Janice. For
but I think that earned her an unfriending.
Oh, really?
Yeah, terrible.
I might friend her just because of that.
I'm talking about from Jeff.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I got you. Oh, yeah. He unfriended her?
Right, apparently so.
Well, I don't think that she was thinking that he might keep her after that comment, but I love it. He's also posted previous to the murder of his wife, "Don't let anyone ruin your day. Be a man, ruin it yourself."
Right.
I think
that did not age well, as they say.
Yeah, that post probably he's kicking himself for posting, right?
Right.
Were there any other juicy ones we should talk about?
That's about everything that I could think of.
Yeah, I do think it's very disrespectful to be whining and crying about how sad you are and how your Christmas sucks when you...
it's just so bizarre. I mean, it's
when you're responsible, whether it was an accident or not, but you were sauced, you had a gun on your ankle, your wife's dead in front of your son. Show some contrition, some remorse, and keep your sadness to yourself, because you're the root cause of that sadness, regardless. Yeah, I think that would be more honorable to his wife and his wife's memory, and to his son.
Agreed.
Yeah. So, we'll see how this plays out, right?
It'll be interesting.
The trial's supposed to start in January, and we'll find out whether it's in LA County or Orange County. If it's Orange County, I want to go watch.
And as much as I've been saying, and you've been saying, that this defense about, it's obvious bullshit that the gun just went off and that he didn't do it. I mean, that's our common sense perspective, and that's what I certainly believe. But as people who have, tried a lot of cases between the two of us, I think we both agree that it is a tough case for the prosecutor for a number of reasons. Definitely to get a first-degree murder, but even to get a second-degree murder, they've got a lot to work with.
The defense has a lot to work with. Yeah, no doubt. I think the dinner time finger gun.
The finger gun, bad timing, Jeff.
That's bad timing to be using the finger guns. And I know, because I like to use them, but not in that context. I do think that, I think you're right. I think he's got something to argue, right? It don't look good, but Ed Wellborn, he's a great lawyer. He's got something to argue. And Seton Hunt is a formidable prosecutor. And I think that he's going to do the best job. And I think that ultimately brings some light to the truth, right? We'll see when the truth comes out at trial and the jurors see what they do. Hopefully they do the right thing based on the evidence before them, and Jeff gets a fair trial. But like I said in the first show with Robin, it don't look good. But you look good, Brian.
Thank you, Heather.
And
So do you.
I have truly enjoyed having you on the show. I hope you had fun.
Can I be a regular?
Yes. As long as you promise to be authentic, because I believe that our stories authentically told can really bring us together as a community and just as people. And I like the truth. I like people, who are willing to, say their mind, speak their mind, and talk about the tough things, but not hold back any. Yeah, have fun and not hold back any punches. So you're the guy. You might be move over to Sahlberg. I might have a new little sidekick here with Brian. I'll rotate you and Sahlberg. My law partner Sahlberg's going to come in too and do it. So thank you for another exciting episode of Defeating the Darkness, True Crime Stories with Downtown Heather Brown. Join us next time. And in the meantime, don't forget to like and follow and subscribe to the show if you like what you're hearing on YouTube, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and you can watch us on Spotify as well. Until next time, if you can't find the light, be the light.